Today, we honor the memory of Brent Ames Wilkes. And once again, we know how keenly the passing of friends and loved ones affect us, and how deeply our own eventual passing enters into all that we are and do. A person's days have been described like grass of the field in its briefness, but they also represent the flowering of some great cosmic urge that brings forth intelligence, a sense of law and order, of love and duty and responsibility, and a sense of creative beauty. Though our days be brief, they represent and reflect for each of us our own individual eternities. Even the longest of lives is a moment between two eternities. Creation's wonders are in us, creation's tragedies, creation's miracles and secrets. Our comings and goings are the pulsations of eternity. Good morning, everyone. I'm Reverend Hank Peirce, minister of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Reading. My pronouns are he, him, and his. On behalf of Linda and Aaron and all of the family, I want to welcome you to our service this morning, where we will remember the past and give words of hope for the future. Now, let me say something that we all know is true. This is strange, this Zoom memorial. We have some wonderful people who are working on the tech side of things, and it will keep all of us running as smoothly as possible. We have wonderful people who will share music and words. Now, there is a link in the order of service in the chat function down below, where if you want to follow along, you can do that. I'm going to ask you all also to just remain muted. You do not want to be that person. But now, let us light our chalice.
Hello, I'm Katie McQuaige-Lucas, the ministerial intern. My pronouns are she and hers. As I light our chalice, please say with me the words of our chalice lighting. In the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment, we gather this day. May the flame we now kindle be to us a symbol of the holiness we seek.
Friends, We are gathered here to honor and to celebrate the life of Brent Wilkes, someone who meant so much to so many. And more, we gather here to be with those who loved Brent most closely and to be near each other at this time of grief. We are here to share with you, Linda, our testimony of respect, our caring and friendship, affirmations of our highest regard and great esteem for Brent. He was your love and partner and friend, and while we can't fill the void that's been left by his death, we want you to know that we are here with you. We are here to be with you, to care with you and respect your loss of him. It is with great admiration that we have observed your steadfast love, devotion, and care of Brent over these past many months and years. You have stood by him. You made sure that when the time came, he would leave this life in the midst of love that the two of you have created. Aaron and Laura and Anne, we are here to be with you as well. All the relatives and friends who have gathered with your spouses and your families, we are here to be with one another as well. We've come to sit together for a while, marking this time of separation. It is not enough to say that Brent was a good guy. I mean, he was. And I'm also sure there were times when he wasn't, times when he was frustrating. I could even imagine him being a little stubborn at times, perhaps. But whatever we might say in our gathering here today, it will not be enough. And there is a kind of comfort in that. It means that Brent will continue to be part of this beloved community. There will always be one more precious, loving thought. There will always be another piece of his kindness, thoughtfulness, or humor that may cause us to be kind, or which may bring us to laugh, or some deep thought of his that may yet return to our lives. It is impossible to sum up the life of another human being. But if I were to try, in a few words, to present what the Brent that we all knew, it might be these words from Mark Twain, who wrote, "Let us endeavor to live that when we come to die, even the undertaker will be sorry."
Great. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. My name is Patrick Kane. I'm a friend of Brent and Linda's from Saratoga Springs, and I'm just deeply honored to be here with all of you this morning. I know our Zoom call world is changing and COVID has affected a lot of the things, but it certainly has not affected our memories of Brent. Brent was a person that as soon as you met him, you felt you've known him all your life. He treated you that way, you treated him that way, and Brent was just such a special person, and Linda as well. I mean, we just had so many laughs here in Saratoga with them, and typically Brent led the charge, and his humor was front and center. But again, I want to here to know that we're here to celebrate Brent's life. We're sad, of course, but we certainly want to celebrate all the memories, all the things that we had and our experiences with Brent and Linda and the rest of the family. And it's just this call could go on forever because we could all just share our songs or our memories. But I just want to share a few of the things that we're probably, or at least I'm going to hold on to for the rest of my life. Brent's friendship and Linda's friendship was just insurmountable. It just was terrific. You felt it every day in a very positive manner. Certainly his smile, his overwhelming sense of humor, which we'll get to in a second, and his deep commitment to his family. How often he was telling us stories about Aaron and what was going on in Boston and so on and so on and so on. And he was just such a vital part of that. And one time Peter Martin and I went to Boston to see him, and he said, you know, your friendship is better than any drug I'm taking. And that meant something to me because we all tried to support him in the end here, but for him to say that to us, I know Peter would probably say the same thing. I walked out of there thinking, wow, what an impact that this man has had on my life, and now we're having an impact on his life. And so that was a very strong memory for me, and I want to share that with you because he meant all of our friendships were not an antidote for his illness, but certainly helped him get through many of the challenging days that he had. We spoke to him mostly through Zoom on Monday nights, and every Monday night he had some pearl of wisdom that he shared with us and left us all with a smile on our face. And I still have a smile on my face today because of all the memories that Brent shared with us. I'm certainly sad. I feel like I've lost my brother, but all in all, it was a wonderful time to spend with Brent and Linda, and they're always going to be with me. I do, however, I really have a few memories that I'd like to share that maybe aren't so positive. I tried in vain to get Brent to become a Yankees fan. No. I tried in vain to get him out of the bow ties. No. He tried. His failure was he was unable to help me to tie a bow tie. So I'm here today without a Brent bow tie, but it's not because he didn't try. I was just probably not talented enough to do that. But I do want to mention that, you know, we felt such a connection with Brent. I mean, we never had a boat. We now have a boat. We never had a dog. We now have a dog. Not one, but two. And these were all the influences that Brent and Linda had on us that as a family we've changed because of it. But just kind of in closing, I just want us to remember his smile, his humor, his commitment to family. His deep love for all of us and all the activities was apparent every single day of his life. And while we'll miss seeing and touching Brent, we'll always remember all the things that he gave to us and all of that. And as I said, I deeply miss Brent, but I will be having Brent in my life and thoughts for the rest of my life. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mark Tates. Several months ago, I sent Reverend Hank this quote from George Burns. It says, "The secret of a good sermon is to have a good beginning and a good ending, and have the two as close together as possible." I have to imagine that that applies to eulogies as well, so I'm hoping that now we're past it. That was a good beginning. I'll try to end strong, not have too much filler in between. For the record, let me just say that this sucks. It really, really sucks. Not only in the sense that Brent was taken from us far too soon, but also in the sense that a Zoom service is a poor substitute for being with you in person. I really feel the need to hug all of you and to have all of you hug me. For 40 years, Brent was one of my closest and dearest friends. It was my happy privilege to be with them to roast him on his 50th and 60th birthdays, and I was really hoping to do it again on his 70th. Instead, it's my sad duty to be here with you now. Over the years, we played a lot of tennis and pickleball and volleyball together. Believe it or not, Brent, that short little son of a gun, actually did block me one time. I'm pretty sure it was the highlight of his playing career because he certainly never let me or anyone else forget it. And lest we did, it's right here on page 458 of his memoir, The Path Taken. We hiked and we biked and we whitewater rafted and we skied and vacationed and dined and drank together, and then we drank some more, though only a few times to excess. Linda will recall one unfortunate night in Middleton when, after playing tennis and downing a gin and tonic or four, Brent felt a sudden need to throw up the beet soup that they had had for dinner all over the louvered doors to their coat closet. Happily, though, I was already gone, and Linda had their dogs Guinness and Stout there to help lap up the mess while Brent was passed out upstairs on the bed. She was not too happy at the time, as you might imagine, but she'll also recall the Carol Burnett quote that's comforted many of us over the years, that comedy equals tragedy plus time. But mostly we talked and we debated and we laughed and we laughed and we laughed some more. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that everyone here not only heard Brent's laugh, but remembers it fondly as one of the very best they've ever heard. I like to think that there was a comedian up there in heaven who was in the middle of a set when Brent passed, thanking God for sending Brent to be in his audience. Brent may have only had 67 years with us, but I can tell you one thing with absolute certainty. He crammed more life, more love, and more laughter into those 67 years than most people do in 100. He loved Cranes Beach and the Boston Red Sox and the Boston Globe sports section. He loved his dogs and going out on his boat. He loved fine wines, single malts, IPAs, and craft gins. He loved a good joke and a good story. He loved his work and all the people who worked with and for him over the years. He loved the UU Church, where I'm standing now, and everything that it stands for. But mostly, he loved Linda and Erin and Gail and all of his family and all of his friends, and we all loved him back. Some of my fondest memories of Brent are from the 26 straight years that he, Chuck Jepka, and I took a few winter's days to go skiing together. Though, truth be told, it was never really about the skiing. It was more about the bonding of three friends who truly cared for one another, even if we approached things from very different perspectives. The tradition was always to leave on an afternoon, drive to our planned destination, find the very best restaurant in town, enjoy a wonderful meal, and then repair to our hotel to solve the problems of the world, or at least debate how they might be solved. Most of the time, it was Brent and Chuck on one side and me on the other, so I was challenged to hold my own in the battle. And though we never actually keep score, I'm willing to call it a draw. In the end, we have all been blessed. Blessed by having known Brent and having him be part of our lives. His love, his compassion, his ability to bring people together, his perspectives on life, his wit, his many, many, many stories, and his laughter lives on in each and every one of us, and we are all the better for it. So, my dear friend, for one last time, I've gathered my wife Sharon and several of our closest volleyball, hiking, and drinking buddies together. Along with the ingredients of one of our favorite drinks, I have the Bombay Sapphire, the tonic, the twist of lemon, not lime, and the only thing missing is you. As we all raise our glasses, we'll honor you with these words.
There are good ships
and wood ships,
and ships that sail the sea.
But the best ships are French ships.
And evermore shall be.
To Brent.
To Brent.
To Brent.
Good morning, everyone. I'm the Reverend Janet Parsons, and I serve the Gloucester Unitarian Universalist Church. And it is such a privilege to be able to remember and to honor Brent today. Brent was a Unitarian Universalist through and through, and he shared his time and his talent generously with all of the congregations that he joined. And one activity that he and Linda enjoyed was creating unique worship services. The other day, I came upon a photo based on the service about the writings of Mark Twain that Brent created, and it made me smile to see it again, and then a moment ago to hear the quote. And Brent also created a service about baseball. Now, many people have noted the profound truths of life represented by baseball. A. Bartlett Giamatti was one. He actually left the presidency of Yale University to become the commissioner of Major League Baseball. And he also wrote a book called A Great and Glorious Game, which included an essay called The Green Fields of the Mind. And here is an excerpt. It breaks your heart. It is designed to break your heart. The game begins in the spring when everything else begins again, and it blossoms in the summer, filling the afternoons and the evenings, and then, as soon as the chill rains come, it stops and leaves you to face the fall alone. You count on it, rely on it to buffer the passage of time, to keep the memory of sunshine and high skies alive. And then just when the days are all twilight, when you need it the most, it stops. Brent added this: it breaks your heart. It is designed to break your heart. Baseball, life. It happens time and time again, day after day, summer after summer, year after year. Sometimes we strike out. Sometimes we get hit by a pitch. Sometimes we hit a home run. Sometimes the best we can do in baseball and in life is to simply show up and play the game. These are such appropriate words to choose to remember Brent by. He showed up. He played the game. He lived his life so fully. He took all his at-bats. He swung at life's pitches and he ran out all of life's grounders. Brent will be remembered as someone always in the game, always involved, always present. And it is hard to accept that this vibrant and vital life has ended. And so may he live on in our memories and in our hearts, keeping the memory of sunshine and high skies alive. Thank you.
I first met Brent Wilkes when he and Pat Kane spearheaded a movement to modernize and improve the government of the city of Saratoga Springs. Brent brought passion, deep knowledge, and a great sense of humor to that project. And with the stoicism of every long-suffering Red Sox fan, he accepted the close calls that left us all saying, "Yeah, but wait until next year." Brent had a laugh that was totally engaging. It started with a deep rumble in his chest and ended with a "ha," clipped with the remnants of a Boston accent. You know, it's funny how that accent was mysteriously resurrected when he left New York and moved back to Gloucester. Brent certainly needed that sense of humor as a transplanted Democrat running for mayor against a hometown boy in a city that leaned Republican. He was patient and generous with his knowledge about how the city can and should work. But he also acknowledged lessons that he learned about how the city actually did work, like the futility of applying for a building permit to add a third garage bay onto his home, and then discovering that the office that issued those permits reported directly to the mayor that he had just run against. Brent's sense of humor was only one of the reasons that he was loved by so many people. He was truly a Renaissance man. In addition to his day job, he generously and successfully led many nonprofit groups in our area, including the Saratoga Springs UUs, Albany Pro Musica, and Cafe Lena. It was in his role on the board of Cafe Lena that I got to know Brent the best. Brent had great personal qualities. He led with generosity and an ability to make everyone that he spoke with feel that they were very important. He said that inwardly, he was shocked when he saw the poor state that the financial records of the cafe had been maintained in. But he used his talents to encourage the staff and volunteers to adopt better practices. And then he turned his attention to building a professional board that has helped the cafe achieve financial stability in a beautifully revised space. When Brent returned to Massachusetts, he gave me the greatest gift that anyone could give another Red Sox fan. He told me the location of his secret parking space near Fenway Park and the app that would keep me out of trouble while parked there. Now, the COVID pandemic has challenged all of us, and it was particularly unfair to Brent. Many of his friends wanted to travel and meet with him to bring him encouragement as he was fighting his final battle with cancer. But the pandemic restrictions prohibited all that. I feel fortunate to have been invited into a group of friends that met every week virtually via Zoom, every week from April through the end of August, and shared stories and pictures of family and life experiences. These weekly discussions confirmed to me what a great man we now eulogize. I miss Brent every day.
Thank you. Who was Brent Wilkes? What has been written about him offers but a tiny glimpse into who he really was. Today, each of us brings a piece of a memory that will ultimately form the collage that will come to represent Brent. We all share a common bond of knowing the wonderful person that Brent was, and we will all share a spirit that will stay with us for the rest of our lives. For me, Brent was my colleague, my friend, and co-humorist. Our common interest in public service caused us to cross paths over 40 years ago. It's been quite a journey. Brent had a sense of public service that was a consistent thread throughout his career. It was always about an effort to make government better for the people in the community. At one time, as we've talked today, he was intrigued by the outdated form of government in Saratoga Springs and decided that he would try to change things by running for mayor. I tried to dissuade him, but he was determined to try and make a difference. He may not have been elected, but he made a difference. He was able to force the conversation about the form of government in the future of the city, And ironically, I read that that conversation continues even today. We had another common bond. Our daughters were relatively close in age, and we often shared stories about how we were doing as dads. Brent cared deeply about being the best dad that he could be, meeting the challenges that he faced every day. He never wavered, never stopped trying to make sure that he gave his best effort. He succeeded. Erin is a wonderful person with many of the same fine qualities as her dad. My wife, Mary, often said that Brent and I were very much alike. We had similar thinking and perhaps an unfortunate link and a similar sense of humor. We could often glance at each other and almost always know what the joke would be. His humor and outgoing personality always lit up the room. Brent was a lover of history and was proud of the Wilkes family lines. He could tell you, in whatever detail you could handle, about the various branches of the family tree, and there were many branches. He and I recently journeyed to his childhood home in Linfield, where the current owner proudly showed Brent around the house. It was a special moment for Brent, as he recalled many of the life events at that special place. I'd like to share a photograph with you if I could. Let me see if this wonderful Zoom process here. Last year, Brent and I took a ride on his boat behind Crane Beach. The tide was high, and we glided quietly along some of the more remote areas. Wary of our approach, a beautiful white egret began to rustle in the deep grass. Sensing the moment, I was able to take a photo as the bird rose from the grass as it took flight. Whenever I look at that photo, I will always be reminded of Brent. Brent always gave me encouragement and feedback on the quality of my photographs. When he became ill this past year, I would always share recent photos as I journeyed around the New England area. In recent years, he said that he wished I could open a gallery by the water and that he and I could sit outside and enjoy the gallery in our retirement. If I am ever lucky enough to open that gallery, his spirit will certainly be there with me. This is the Brent that I will always remember, his happy place on a boat. And in closing, let me just say, let the strength of Brent's spirit stay with us to fill the space that is left in our hearts. Let him walk with us as we continue our journey. Let him be by our side, sharing our thoughts, smiles, and memories. Rest in peace, my friend. Thank you.
I met Brent and Linda Wilkes in 2006 when they visited me at the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Saratoga Springs. They were moving to the Capital District of New York for Brent's business and deciding where in the Capital District to live. The presence of a Unitarian Universalist congregation was high on their list of requirements for the community. They also wanted a lively cultural scene and a lake for Brent's boat. Saratoga offered all of that. So they joined the church, and within a year and a half, Brent became president. We met weekly and got to know each other deeply. On a cold and rainy night, as I was driving to a meeting, the phone rang. The name on the screen was Brent Wilkes. So I pulled over to take the call. Brent had received a diagnosis of prostate cancer that day. Not knowing his theology, I blurted out that I would pray for him. I don't know how much he appreciated that. He was a humanist, I a theist, but I did pray for him, for healing, for him to be comforted by the love of family and friends, to face his diagnosis courageously, and most of all, to find much joy in everyday life, to reconcile with his brother, who also had prostate cancer and died in 2009. That was an event of great sadness for Brent. Brent had many wonderful qualities. The one which really stands out for me is generosity. Generosity of spirit, as well as time, talent, and treasure. He and Linda shared freely with our congregation. They chaired stewardship campaigns and challenged us to increase our pledges by matching all increases over 10%. They donated office furniture and computers. They chaired goods and services auctions and church fairs and coffee houses. And I say they because while some of those things were chaired by Linda, Brent was always there in a supporting role. When she chaired the church fair, he worked the refreshment stand. He knew how to lead and how to follow. Brent was a lover of good wine. One day I asked him if there were any good boxed wines because I like to have a glass of wine with dinner, and boxed wines keep better after opening. He replied that there were. A few days later, a liter of black box Cabernet Sauvignon appeared on my desk. There was no note, but I knew from whom it had come. The really spectacular gift, from my point of view, occurred one Christmas Eve. I was pretty obsessive about good flow in the Christmas Eve service. It was always a cast of thousands, and I had a notebook with the entire script and tried to ensure that everyone knew when they were to go to the podium or sing or whatever. But this time, Brent went to the podium, off script. I panicked and began leafing through my notebook to see what I had missed. What is he up to? I wondered. But I took a deep breath and stayed in my chair. He presented me with a check, a gift of $3,500 from members of the congregation. I'm an amateur violinist who returned to lessons in my 50s. One day at our weekly meeting, I had 2 violins in the office, and Brent asked why. I explained that I was looking for a new violin and thought I had found one. He asked how much it would cost. I said $5,000, and explained that I had to sell the old one before I could buy a new one. So sneakily, and I say that in the best of spirits, Brent emailed the congregation and invited them to contribute to my new violin. They did. And on Christmas Eve, he presented that check. Brent wasn't just generous himself. He also invited other people to generosity. He was a true leader, sharing my vision of growing Unitarian Universalism. He helped us organize as a region, spearheading a joint advertising campaign for 5 congregations. He allowed us to use the conference room at his business for workshops and monthly meetings of ministers and presidents. He shared his spirituality through several sermons. He was good at conflict prevention and at conflict resolution, because in his generous spirit, he could see all sides and gently guide us to reconciliation. I customarily gave Christmas gifts to my church presidents, some small token of appreciation for all the hard work and patience and endurance it takes to fill that office. But what to give Brent, a man who had all the material goods he needed, and yet, as his minister, I knew the diagnosis of cancer had caused him to face his mortality in ways that most of us don't have to. It weighed upon him. So Christmas of 2011, his last year as president, for my gift to him, I collected my favorite readings about death and paid Ali Mahuda, one of our high school youth, to word process them into a collection, a small booklet for him. I tried to choose readings that spoke to his humanism rather than my theism. He seemed to receive it with appreciation, but I regret that we never had the opportunity to talk about whether or how much they were of comfort to him. Looking back, Brent is sort of a hero for me because he lived out many of my aspirational values. He was thoughtful, generous, patient, kind, joyful, humble, someone who knew how to live well, bringing joy and laughter wherever he served. He faced his life and his death courageously, and I shall miss him greatly.
Friends, will you join me in a moment of meditation? They who go down to the sea in ships, who do business on the great waters, they see the beauty of the world and the wonders in the deep. Looking across the span of human years is like looking out on the expanse of the seas. The years roll by with the regularity of the waves, reminding each of us that life is a long voyage into the known and the unknown. Along the way, there will be tenderness and trouble, long labor and short sweetness, ideals, defeats, and sickness. There will be sparkling joy and cavernous sorrow, the molehill of misunderstanding against the mountain of true accord, puddles of regret against the beautiful lakes of love and companionship. When we look at the ocean, we see that each wave has a beginning and an end. A wave can be compared to other waves, and we can call it more or less beautiful, higher or lower, longer lasting or less long lasting. But if we look more deeply, we see that a wave is made of water. While living the life of a wave, the wave also lives the life of water. It would be sad if the wave did not know that it was water. It would think, someday I will have to die. This period of time is my lifespan, and when I arrive at the shore, I will return to non-being. But in the world of the water, there are no signs. And when the wave touches its true nature, which is water, all of its complexities will cease, and it will transcend death and birth. Each of us is somewhere along the way of this great journey. Birth is but awakening. Life is dedication, and death is the change which comes between where we are and where the universe might be. When that change is filled with the understanding that envelops all differences and distinctions, life has renewed itself with that from which it cannot be removed. And we are forever at home on a vast but friendly shore.
this chalice, please say with me our chalice extinguishing words. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts.
He whom we loved is not where he was before. He is now everywhere we are. Let us honor Brent's life by living more nobly and lovingly in the days ahead. As you return to the routines of your lives, go in great peace, my friends. May the spirit of life go with you. Blessed be and amen.